So, those of you who do listen to the show, you know I'm an Alabama fan. And I've been a bandwagon Alabama fan since I was in middle or high school. I just always loved the program and the school, right? Every kid, I feel like when you're young, you like gravitate towards a school. A lot of people do, I feel like. And I've always been a fan, or at least for better part of a decade. And I can definitively tell you that I knew, let me put it this way. You start with dominating the line of scrimmage, right? Early 2000s, 2010s, Saban and the domination of Alabama really hits its full stride. The early 2010s, Alabama just killed everybody on the line of scrimmage. They were running the ball whenever, wherever they wanted, at will, with monster running backs and honestly average quarterbacks. But they didn't need great quarterbacks. They needed just accurate quarterbacks that made good decisions, handed the ball off, and they played excellent defense. And they won nonstop for 6, 7, 8, 10 years almost. Then as the sport of football starts to transition to spread offense and better athletes on the outside, Alabama also makes that transition, brings in Jalen Hurts to play quarterback. Jalen Hurts was a bit of a hybrid quarterback where he ran the ball very effectively. He was a pretty solid passer, had his setbacks in college. Of course, everyone knows the story. Tua comes in to replace him. Tua comes in, excellent quarterback in college and in both the NFL. Now the new wave of quarterback play and the emphasis of quarterback play is maintaining the Alabama dynasty. Mac Jones comes in, does a good enough job. He's pretty good. He's an NFL caliber quarterback. Have him for a year, another national championship. Then they go to Bryce Young, Heisman Trophy winner. They go to the national championship. They lose, but they're right at the top. They're relevant. And then last year, right? You go from Jalen Hurts to Tua to Mac Jones to a Heisman Trophy winning Bryce Young. You fall to Georgia in the national championship. And that was the moment that the Alabama dynasty had reached its peak and started coming back down the other side. Because at that moment, everybody realized that Alabama can be beaten with a team that has better athletes. And that was Georgia. Last year, Alabama had a lot of really talented athletes across the field. At running back, Will Anderson was one guy, a couple other players on the outsides, and of course, Bryce Young. And even with those talented players and arguably the best quarterback in the country, they lose to Tennessee, they lose to LSU, and the hill has been passed, and they make their trek back down the other side. And now you find yourself with Jalen Milroe playing quarterback for Alabama. Anybody who's watched even a little bit of Alabama football over the last 2 years and then saw the difference in quarterback play from Bryce Young to Jalen Milroe, anybody saw this coming from a million miles away. Alabama ranked number 3 was just because of their name. And I love them. And I was happy they were ranked number 3. And they claimed that they were going to be transitioning their style of play and dominating the line of scrimmage. Well, they played Texas. And Texas sacked Milroe 5 times, and Alabama did not record 1 sack. That's not Alabama football. That has never been their MO. It's always been line of scrimmage domination. Package that together with a quarterback who does not have the quarterback sense. It's a massive drop off from a guy like Bryce Young, who stares down receivers, can only really execute timing throws. And they play a Texas team they beat last year by 1 point with Texas's backup quarterback playing 3 quarters of that game. So anybody who took Alabama on the spread or picked them to win or thought Texas had no chance doesn't know ball, but we do know ball. And I was not just nervous, but I would have been surprised if Alabama won against Texas. I'll put it that way. Anybody that knows college football and has been watching that program, Alabama has reached its peak and they're coming back down the other side. That doesn't mean they can't slow it down to some degree and stay relevant once the 12-team playoff comes around, because they certainly will be in the playoff, in the conversation for years to come. But I think you can definitively say that the Alabama football program and the Alabama dynasty has reached its peak, and they're now coming back down the other side. And they came back down gradually last year with a couple losses and still having the number 1 quarterback in the country. And then you drop from Bryce Young to Jalen Milroe, and that climb back down the other side got a whole lot steeper. And as much as they can claim they wanted to do this or they wanted to change their identity and be physical, be big, you got to go out and prove it. And they did not only not prove it, but they got embarrassed. They got dominated by Texas at home. I think the shared consensus amongst Alabama fans, including myself, was, well, we'd be lying if we said we didn't see this loss coming a little bit. Now, maybe they use it as motivation. Maybe Alabama goes out, runs the table, and somehow pulls off a miracle, beats Georgia, and gets into the playoff. But I can tell you confidently that as long as Jalen Milroe is playing quarterback for Alabama, they are a 3-loss, maybe a 4-loss team looking at the rest of their schedule, because they play Tennessee again, they play LSU again, and, they play Auburn. That's always a tough matchup, no matter what. I'm just saying, man, don't be surprised if at the end of the year, somebody besides Jalen Milroe is taking snaps at quarterback, because it's very obvious that, yeah, he's a phenomenal athlete. Yeah, he can run the ball with the best of them, but he's Lamar Jackson at quarterback with half of the passing ability and half of the quarterback sense. And that's not a great combination. Combine that with Alabama's line of scrimmage getting just utterly dominated all night. And that was the most predictable loss I think I could have said in the history of the program, or at least since Saban's been there. And it is sad, but yeah, there's opportunity. It's not like completely over. Alabama has, I guess, a good quarterback recruit coming in next year, Julian Sayin from California. Maybe he comes in and he plays great. But when Alabama loses to Georgia in the national championship 2 years ago with Bryce Young, with a phenomenally talented team, and then last year they lose 2 games with Bryce Young, they're giving up 35, 45 points a game. Top recruits are starting to prioritize other schools, Georgia, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State. Arch Manning turns down the Alabama offer to go to Texas. This slide down the back end of a winning peak has started for a while from Alabama, 2 years ago till today. And it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. Again, 12-team playoff may keep them around and relevant, may save the relevancy of that program for years to come. But ultimately, if you don't have a good quarterback, man, like, you're just not gonna be good. You're just not gonna be very good. I don't know what to tell you. That's just football in 2023. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're not gonna be good. That's why I like Michigan, because I think JJ McCarthy is very talented. He's a good, true quarterback in the backfield. That's why I like Florida State. Jordan Travis is a really talented quarterback, good game sense, executes the tough throws. But you look at Georgia with Carson Beck, not great. You look at Ohio State with McCord, not great. Look at Alabama with Jalen Milroe, not great. And I said it from the beginning too. I said it before I said it last week before they played. I thought the winner of the Alabama and Texas game would be a team that ends up in the college playoff. Because if Alabama could beat Texas with a much worse team than Texas had, then they could find a way to win probably the rest of their games on their schedule. Texas was probably the toughest opponent they were going to play all season. So if they could have beat them, they probably could have ran the table and found themselves in the playoff. With Texas beating Alabama, now Texas is not going to lose. Who are they going to lose to? Unless they just have a blow-up game or a big injury, right? Look at Texas's schedule. Go through the rest of the year for Texas. Let's see. They have 2 more ranked opponents to play for the entirety of the season. They go Wyoming, win. At Baylor, not a good team, win. Kansas, win. Number 19, Oklahoma, who doesn't scare anybody. Houston, BYU. Number 15, Kansas State. That might be a tough game, but that's at home. At TCU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. Texas beating Alabama. Look at the rest of their schedule. There's just not a single reason why the Longhorns shouldn't just cruise into the top 4 teams in the college football playoff. It should not even be a second thought. So good for Texas. I mean, it's good. I think having Texas good is good for college football.